Hi, thanks for joining me. My name's Itzel Polanco Cavadas. I'm the Inclusionary Housing Specialist with the City of Somerville's Housing Division. And today I'd like to talk about 4 income restricted condos available for homeownership at Cedar Place. First, I'd like to speak a little bit about the background on this opportunity. The City of Somerville has an inclusionary zoning requirement, which was amended on May 9th, 2016, requiring new construction consisting of 18 dwelling units or more would be required to provide up to 20% affordable housing. In the case of Cedar Place, the project was permitted on February 1st, 2017, and as such, the developer is required to provide 4 income restricted affordable inclusionary units. First, I'd like to mention a little bit on the background on how this opportunity became available. The City of Somerville has an inclusionary zoning ordinance which requires new developments to provide income restricted, affordable, or otherwise known as inclusionary units. On May 9th, 2016, the then Board of Aldermen voted to amend the ordinance to require up to 20% affordable units in developments providing 18 or more dwelling units. Cedar Place was permitted on February 1st, 2017, which meant that they are required to provide 20%, which came out to be 4 income restricted units and a fractional payment. So that's how we now have 4 income restricted, affordable, or inclusionary units available. Before I go too into the presentation, I'd like to briefly go over some of the eligibility requirements in this and the next slide. So first, we have a minimum household size of 2 for anyone who's applying for a 2-bedroom and 3 for anyone who's applying for a 3-bedroom. And we do not accept households of convenience who just come together to apply for this opportunity. You have to have a history of living together if you're unmarried and unrelated. The asset limit is $250,000, excluding any restricted retirement accounts or college and health savings plans. Both head of households cannot be full-time students, and that includes adults, even if they're receiving income, who are pursuing a PhD. So it's okay if one of them is, but as long as both heads of household are not full-time students, and we wouldn't be determining whether someone's a full-time student. This is something that would be coming from the higher education institution where the heads of households are enrolled. The household must be income eligible, and the household must be a first-time homebuyer and provide a certificate or proof of enrollment in a first-time homebuyer class that's approved by MHC. And if you are enrolled, the class doesn't exactly have to end by the time of the lottery this time around, but we do want to see verification that you are enrolled. We understand that many classes were canceled or delayed, but if you do end up winning, we want to see that you finished a course by the time that before you close. If you have an expired first-time homebuyer certificate and it recently expired or it will expire before the lottery or deadline, please submit that and enroll for another course when you get a chance, but we will be accepting expired certificates this time around with a pre-lottery application. Please note that only one household member has to take a first-time homebuyer class, and that there are 5 exceptions to being a first-time homebuyer. And so even if you have purchased a home in the past, you may still be considered a first-time homebuyer. For example, if so long as you haven't owned a home for the last 3 years, counting back from the date that you submit the application, you would be considered a first-time home buyer. If you are over the age of 55 and selling your home to downsize to an income restricted unit and are income and asset eligible, then you would be considered a first-time home buyer as well. If you have any more questions about the exceptions, feel free to reach out. Feel free to reach out to us. And this includes any property you may own here or anywhere else. The applying household must also be approved for a 30-year fixed mortgage and provide us with a mortgage pre-approval letter, which includes an interest rate or an interest rate range. The mortgage amount that the household is approved for must cover the cost of the home minus any down payment. If you are making more than a 3% down payment, please disclose that in your application. And the letter cannot be subject to credit, employment, asset verification. We understand that they have to verify that again at the time of a mortgage application, but we do require that they do initially check your credit, income, assets before providing the letter. And letters from internet sites do not fit the requirement, and it's also good to note that some lending institutions may not refer to them as pre-approvals. They may be considered pre-qualifications or credit approval letters depending on the institution, but mainly what we're referring to are pre-approval letters. And you must check that they are checking your credit, income, and assets, and they're not just taking your word for it, but actually asking you for documentation before providing the pre-approval for a 30-year fixed mortgage. And the last requirement is that you do have to have at least 3% to put down. You should also have a bit more to cover closing costs, but there are closing cost assistance programs just in case. One way that the city ensures that these 4 condos remain affordable in perpetuity is by having an affordable housing restriction recorded along with the master deed and declaration of trust for the entire project. Along with each additional purchase of the 4 deed-restricted condos, a deed rider will also be recorded. And on the deed rider, some of the following key points will be mentioned, and it's also good for every person applying and considering purchasing a deed-restricted unit to consider. The condo must be the buyer's principal and primary residence. These units cannot be rented short-term or long-term, not a room and not the entire condo. The housing division has a compliance and monitoring team which will be checking in on each buyer on an annual basis to ensure that they are using this unit as their primary and principal residency. If a buyer is looking to refinance, the city must provide consent. If the buyer, a few years down the road decides that they'd like to sell the property, they can do so, but they must notify the city's housing division, and the city would be calculating a resale price, which is not based at all on the market, and we cannot ensure that the seller will be gaining any certain percentage on the property. The only thing we can ensure is that we will make sure that you do not sell at less than you purchased at, and the units must be affordable in perpetuity at the income limit that you purchased at. So for example, if you are purchasing a unit in Tier 1, then although the income limits change every year, at the time that you go to sell, we must ensure that the price is affordable to households at the same income tier that you purchased at. And that about sums up all of the restrictions, the main restrictions. During normal times, this would be the part of the information session where the developer would step in and represent their own project. In this case, Cedar Murdock Partners LLC. However, given the stay-at-home order, I will try to represent their project as best as I can. The 5-building 22 dwelling unit project is on Murdock and Cedar Streets in Somerville, between Trumfield and the Somerville bike path. The street that you can see on the bottom left corner there is Murdock, and this is a project that was divided into 3 phases. Phase 1 and 2 have been completed, while Phase 3 is very near completion. The 4 buildings, 3 of which you can see completely on the bottom part of the rendering, were in Phase 1 and 2, and the affordable units are spread out throughout the entire project. So 3 of them are completed and are located in those 3 buildings, while the 4th affordable unit will be in the L-shaped building. That L-shaped building at the top of the rendering is above a heated underground garage area, where all of the units will have a deeded parking space included in the price. On this slide, you'll find a short list of specifications and appliances. If you'd like more details on the units, please visit Cedar Place's somervillema.com for more information, and you can just follow the link on this slide. On this slide, you'll find a short list of specifications and appliances. If you'd like more information, including photos of units and a 3D tour, they're available on their website, Cedar Place's somervillema.com, and you can follow the link on this slide to get there. 15 Murdock Unit B is the first of the 4 income-restricted condos we'll get into. This 2-bedroom plus den unit is located in the building that is to the bottom right corner if you're looking at the rendering on the slide 2 slides ago. It is completed, and it is a duplex unit. So as soon as you walk into the living room, dining, kitchen area, and then there's a bathroom and a bedroom on that floor. If you go up the steps, then you enter another bedroom with a den, which also includes a beautiful deck. The price for this unit is $196,674, and this is a unit that's available to households with incomes below 80% area median income, and the household must be a minimum of 2 people. At Cedar Place, 227 Cedar Unit number 9 is a very rare 3-bedroom, which we have available to households with incomes at 80% or below. The purchase price at Tier P1 is $221,384, and this unit is available to households with a minimum of 3 people because it is a 3-bedroom. This unit is in the L-shaped building on the top left corner of the rendering 3 slides back, and it is one that I haven't gotten a chance to walk through just yet because it's not yet complete, but almost. And so we don't have the final plans for this unit, although you might be able to get an idea of what it might look like because there is a 3D tour available on the CambridgeRealEstate.com website. If you follow the link on this slide, you can check it out there. We also, again, like the previous unit, require a minimum of 3% down. So for this, at this price, we expect that the buyer will have at least $6,641.52 available for a down payment. The monthly condo fee and taxes increase slightly because the price of the unit and the size are a bit larger or greater. This unit also has 2 bathrooms and a deck. These next 2 units are said to be affordable to households with incomes between 81 and 110% area median income. This unit here is Unit 19 Murdock B. It is a 2-bedroom and it's priced at $287,887. It's also a duplex and it begins at the garden level and then goes up, with the initial floor being the one with the family room and a bedroom to the left. And then the kitchen and another bedroom are on the next floor up. It has 2.5 bathrooms, and the monthly fees are available here. The minimum down payment jumps up to $8,636.61 for this unit. And again, the minimum household size for this unit is a household of 2 because it is a 2-bedroom. The last and fourth unit at Cedar Place is 21 Murdock, Unit A. It is a 2-bedroom and it is available to a household of at least 2 persons with incomes between 81 to 110% area median income. The price for this unit is $287,887, and the required minimum down payment is $8,636.61. We estimate that the condo fees will be $102 for the first year and taxes around $247.34. This unit has 2.5 bathrooms and is spread over 2 floors that you can see on the slide here on the left. Before we can determine who is eligible, you have to figure out who is part of your household and what exactly we're talking about when we're referring to your household. So anyone who would be living with you in the condo, if you were to win it, would be considered part of your household, especially for the initial year, since we're looking to determine eligibility based on the initial year. So if your household includes anyone who is under or over the age of 18, it doesn't matter if they receive any income. If they do, we'll have to see it, but they're still part of your household if they do not receive any income. If you have any children who are away for college and are still your dependent, they would be considered part of your household. If you or anyone in your household is pregnant and expecting a child in their 3rd trimester at the time of the deadline, which is May 28th, then the unborn child would also be part of the household. And if you or anyone in your household has custody of a child for 183 days or more of the year, or 51% of the time, then they would be considered part of your household. Sometimes we can also consider household members who are currently absent also part of the household, depending on what the situation is. So for example, if someone is going through a divorce but it's not finalized yet, depending if we can't prove that that person is not part of your household, not at a different address, and cannot really prove that you are actually going through a divorce, then we might have to count that other household member and their income and assets. Please note that you cannot just apply with anyone to this opportunity so that you fit the minimum requirement of household members. The persons that you're applying with, if you are unmarried and unrelated, will have to see that you have a history of living together. And we won't check for the history of living together at the time that you submit the initial pre-lottery application, but we will be looking for that if you were to win and income certify. If you are married and unrelated, that's fine, and if you're related, you don't have to show us a history of living together. Now that we've figured out how many people are in your household, we can take a look at this gross annual income eligibility requirements chart with a 2019 HUD income limits for units said to be affordable to households with incomes at 80% and 110% area median income. So first you want to look at the column on the far left with the number of household members, and then see where your income falls per year before taxes. And so if it's below, for example, 103,500 for a household of 6, then you're able to apply to the units set at 80%, which are 15 Murdock, Unit B, a 2-bedroom, and 227 Cedar Street, Unit B, a 3-bedroom. For this opportunity, we don't set minimum income limits. The bank would be better advising you as to whether you can afford the price of this home. And so we leave the minimum income judgment to them, but we do require a minimum down payment. And if your gross annual household income is above 103,500 for a 6-person household, but below 144,600, then you would be eligible for the other 2 units. And so depending on how many people are in your household, you just go up and down this table and figure out where your income lands. And of course, income is not always that straightforward, so I'm going to go a little more into it in the next slides. When we think about income from the Inclusionary Housing Program perspective, we are thinking about any money that comes to you or anyone in your household from outside of your household. So that means any amounts, sometimes monetary or not, that are received on behalf of any household member, even if it's a household member who may not be part of your household the entire initial year. So for example, because we do look at the entire first year from the time that we're income certifying, which would be probably right after the lottery for the winners, which we anticipate to be on June 23rd. So from June, we'll be thinking about the next 12 months and how much money you will be receiving or making, or anyone in your household during those 12 months. We also count interest accrued from assets for anyone in your household if the assets are $5,000 or more. And it is your responsibility to talk to us if you're unsure about whether something is considered income or you're not sure how to count it, especially if you are really close to the top of the 80%, for example, limit, or 110%, and you're not sure which tier to put your income in, because if we do enter you into the lottery for the wrong income tier, and it turns out that when we're doing an income certification we count your income differently and you end up not being eligible, then you just can't move forward with the purchase of the unit, even though you've won it in the lottery. Now we're going to go into some examples of income and assets, just because some of them may not be so straightforward, and so they can be easily forgotten. The most straightforward, of course, is wages from a job or salary, if someone receives unemployment or expects to receive unemployment for the next 12 months, sometime during the next 12 months, please let us know. If you are or anyone in the household is receiving Social Security, disability benefits, child support, regardless if it's in arrears or not, you'll need to disclose that information. We'll need to see verification of all income and assets at the time of income certification if you do one. If someone is self-employed, even if it's just selling some products here and there and may not be very reliable, we'll still need to see, or we'll still need you to disclose that information at the time of application. If you do gigs, you have family or friends and they pay you, sell art on the side, or even if you have an open fundraising account, such as GoFundMe, crowdsource, please disclose that, as that might be considered income. A list of assets is also included on the right. Some of the ones that are normally forgotten are Venmo, PayPal, Cash Apps. If you do own a business, we'll need to see the business accounts as well. We do ask that you certify the amount of cash you have on hand at the time of income certification and disclose that in your application. We are not just asking about accounts that are held locally, but we're also asking about any accounts held by you or anyone in your household, whether here or abroad. Some other accounts that are sometimes forgotten are 401ks or Bitcoin, for example. But any accounts will need to see the most recent 3 months of statements at the time of income certification, and for income we'll also need to see the most recent 3 months. If you do own your own business and are self-employed, we'll need to see a profit and loss statement of the previous year and the next 12 months, and we'll be counting net income on any businesses that you may own, instead of what we normally look at, which is gross. To help you ensure that you're really thinking about all the questions we're going to be thinking about when we're looking at your income, we've listed some of those questions here. For example, are you going to be losing or gaining any income? Clients, if you own a business, will you be closing a store, for example, within the next 12 months? Do you expect, or have you historically received any raises during every year? And if so, what's the percentage? And are you including that in your calculation of your household's total income? Below are other questions to consider, like the frequency of your pay when calculating, and also whether anything's different during the season that you're filling in this application. For example, are you working more overtime during this next 3 months but not the entire year, or vice versa? In this slide, we go on to a list of more steps that you can take to ensure that your income is listed and calculated as accurately as possible. One thing that you could do is check with your HR. If you have a union rep, check with your union rep to see if they anticipate any changes in your hours, any raises, or any sort of change in your contract. If you review the last 3 months of bank statements, that would be really helpful, not just with income, but also in your income certification, as we'll be reviewing your last 3 months of all asset statements to see whether there's any income coming in, and if so, we're going to require explanations if they're not self-explanatory. So it's always a good idea to look at them and see if there's any income coming in that maybe just listed as a cash deposit, and to really think about what that is, and if you have any verification of whether that is income or that it's not income. we'll need to see it. Another thing that you can do is review your tax returns. We will request that you submit the last 3 years of tax returns for all household members, including all schedules and pages and W-2s for the last 3 years again, and those are federal tax returns only. If you know that your income or your situation might change within the next 12 months, that's a good thing to disclose and think about, as it may affect your income. And yeah, then we offer an entire page in the application that might help you calculate your total household's gross income. With a complete pre-lottery application, including all signatures and information, we also require a mortgage pre-approval letter, a first-time homebuyer certificate or verification of enrollment in a course, and if applicable, preference verification. And I'll go into the details of those documents now. You are required to get a mortgage pre-approval for a 30-year fixed mortgage before you submit an application. These normally take about 2 weeks, so I would start early in applying for a mortgage pre-approval, and different banks might call them different names, such as Cambridge Savings Bank calls it a credit approval letter, and here we've added a sample. We are looking that the loan amount covers the cost of the home minus the down payment that you're planning on making, and the down payment should be disclosed in the assets so that we can ensure that you are eligible. So for example, in the letter you'll see the loan amount. It confirms that it's a 30-year fixed mortgage. It includes the interest rate or an interest rate range that they plan on providing, and then it has an expiration date. Well, this time around we are not exactly checking for the expiration date. We probably won't take some that are from like last year, for example, but so long as it's within the next few months and it doesn't have to be for this opportunity valid through the lottery date like we normally make it, given that we've postponed the lottery date and that it may be difficult to acquire a mortgage pre-approval, although we have checked with all of the banks that are listed in the information packet, and they're pretty much working as usual. Other things to consider with a mortgage pre-approval is that it shouldn't the mortgage pre-approval, credit approval, or if it's in some cases called a pre-qualification, we will only be accepting it if it is from an actual lending institution, not like for example a bank. Not a bank, but a website that provides pre-approvals, and we will be checking to make sure that they are looking at your credit, your actual income, verifying it, assets, not just taking your word for it. And sometimes please look at your letter to make sure it doesn't have any conditions that would make it difficult for you to actually get a loan. The second document that we'll be looking for to determine whether your pre-lottery application is complete or not is a first-time homebuyer certificate. We would normally require a valid one from a course that's been approved by MHC or Mass Homeownership Collaborative. However, in this case, given COVID-19 difficulties, we will not be checking to make sure that their certificate is valid. If it's recently expired, that may be okay. And if you've enrolled in a course that is not ending before the lottery date, that may also be okay. We understand that a lot of the classes have been postponed, so just provide us with the information. We'll need to see that your name's on the registration or certificate and the date of expiry or that the class would end. And only one household member, again, has to attend a course. And we've also provided a link to chapa.org where you'll find all of the MHC approved courses for the next few months. There are online choices and there are in-person choices, although I'm not sure about right now. And the prices may range, and they are this directory has classes that are throughout the greater Boston area. The third document requires verification of living or working 32 hours or more in Somerville if it's applicable. If you don't live in Somerville, you can still apply. We'll only need a mortgage pre-approval and first-time homebuyer certificate with your pre-lottery application. If you do live in Somerville, it is really important that you provide verification of that with your application. The verification must be no more than 30 days old from the day that you're submitting the application. And if you work in Somerville, we also need verification of that. You have to work 32 hours or more and be able to provide written documentation of that to receive a preference in the lottery. Both live and work in Somerville preferences are co-equal. And if you are eligible, I highly recommend that you apply with the Somerville preference because it'll give you a greater chance of actually winning a unit. And as we normally, how we do the lottery is we normally put, for example, everyone who's applying for 227 Cedar, the 3-bedroom, would, with the Somerville preference, would get numbers, unique identifiers, and then we would put those into a bingo wheel first. So for example, if 10 people applied total for the 3-bedroom and 5 of them had a Somerville preference, we would be putting those 5 numbers in first, and then in the order in which we draw them, they would be on a list. So if a unique identifier, for example, 62, 3BR, 80 SP came out first, then they would be number 1, and then they'd have the opportunity to income certify and see if they're eligible and perhaps purchase a unit. And so then if they're number 1 and then the other 4 with the Somerville preference are also taken out of the bingo wheel and listed in the order in which they're taken out, then they would be numbers 1 through 5. And then the other 5 without a Somerville preference would be numbers 6 through 10. So that's how that normally works. Again, Somerville live and work are co-equal, and we do need valid verification of that data within the last 30 days with your pre-lottery application in order to grant you that preference. If you live in Somerville and are providing verification of that with your pre-lottery application, please ensure that the verification you're submitting includes at least one household member's full name, your Somerville address, and the date of the document. Not, for example, the date that the bill is due if it's a bill, but the date of the bill or statement. And if it's more than one page, then we likely have to see more than one page of the document. So if it's a bank statement, for example, and it's 1 page of 3, we'll need to see all 3 pages. And please, no screenshots of just the address part. We need to see the entire document. And some of the documents that are accepted to verify your residency in Somerville are a utility bill, a cell phone bill, a credit card statement, voter registration letter, and a current lease. Sometimes we get screenshots, for example, of someone registering to vote. We won't accept that. That doesn't have a date. Well, even if it has today's date, we normally need the verification that you have registered, not that you are registering. Here's an example Eversource utility bill with the arrows pointing at the statement date because that's the date we'll be looking at, and your name and address. Normally Eversource bills I think are like 2 pages, so make sure to include both of those pages, full pages, not just the bottom part where with the amount due and your address, as the bottom part doesn't have the date. If you work 32 hours or more in Somerville, you would be eligible for a work in Somerville preference if you provide verification of this with your pre-lottery application. Again, just like most of the documentation must be dated within the last 30 days from the date that you're submitting a complete pre-lottery application. The verification must include a household member's name, full name, the employment address and the number of hours worked per week. Some documentation that may verify this are a pay stub, letter from employer, or proof of business ownership. Please, if you are submitting one of these 3 documents, please make sure to look at them to make sure they include your full name, hours, and location. So for example, sometimes we get pay stubs that include a headquarter address, which is not in Somerville, and if so, we'll need some other kind of verification, or maybe a pay stub won't work for you then, and you should submit a letter from the employer. If you work at Tufts and are applying for a work in Somerville preference, we must ensure that the location of your workplace is actually in the Somerville side of campus or within the city of Somerville borders. So if you're providing a letter or a pay stub, it must include the exact location where you are working 32 hours or more per week, and it must be in Somerville. If you are working out of a co-working space and hoping that that might suffice, we need to see verification that you're working 32 hours or more, and it's really impossible for a co-working space or contract to provide that information, as we found. So co-working spaces in Somerville are not covered by this preference. If you are employed or have recently been given an offer to work in a not yet existing business in Somerville, we cannot give you that verification or this preference until you actually start working in Somerville 32 hours or more and provide verification of that. If you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to us if you have a kind of difficult situation. Here we list some possible consequences of disclosing inaccurate or not disclosing all of the information upfront in your pre-lottery application, as it might affect your eligibility for the specific unit at the specific income tier during the lottery. Please keep these in mind. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic and subsequent statewide emergency, we are only taking applications submitted through one of these 2 methods, and that is through email at inclusionary@somervillema.gov or through fax at 617-591-3235. The updated deadline is Thursday, May 28th, 2020 at 2 p.m. We will not be taking any application submitted any later than 2 p.m. 2 p.m. is the cutoff time. If your application is not complete and submitted before then, we cannot accept it. As normal, we try to work with you if you submit an application via email, for example, this month, we will be trying to review it and get back to you in case any questions were unanswered or we have any other questions regarding your application. If you forgot a document or maybe the document doesn't include everything it should, we will be getting back to you. If you do submit an application, for example, 2 weeks before the May 28th deadline, we probably won't have time to review the application right before the deadline and get back to you so that you can add information or update it prior to the deadline and before. So please keep that in mind and try to submit your applications as soon as possible. And please review your applications to make sure that they are complete before the May 28th deadline at 2 p.m. Once you've submitted a complete pre-lottery application with a mortgage pre-approval, first-time homebuyer certificate, and preference verification if applicable before the deadline on Thursday, May 28th at 2 p.m., we will be reviewing your application if it was submitted more than 2 weeks before the deadline, for example. As we get closer to the deadline, that's when we get more applications and have less time to review and get back to you if you have any questions or you missed anything ahead of the deadline. So after the deadline, we'll be reviewing to make sure that applications are sorted into the right lottery pool with a preference, without a preference, income tier, and unit type. And we will be getting back to you with a unique identifier if you're participating in the lottery. The unique identifier will give you information as to whether you have a preference, which income tier you're in, and what bedroom or unit type you're going in the lottery for. Some of you may be interested in both 2 and 3 bedrooms, for example, and some of you may only be interested in 2 bedrooms. If so, please make sure to look at your unique identifiers in the email explaining where you are, and get back to us as soon as you receive it if you find any mistakes. We normally don't get to assign unique identifiers until we're closer to the lottery, which is scheduled to be held on June 23rd at 11 a.m. You don't have to be present at the lottery in order to win, but the household who is chosen number 1 for the 3-bedroom 227-seater will be contacted immediately. The person who is chosen number 1 for the 2-bedroom at 80 will also, and households number 1 and number 2 in the lottery for the two bedrooms at 110 will be called in. So those 4 lucky households will have the opportunity to provide income, asset, and tax verification. And this process of us reviewing all of the last 3 months of all income statements, all asset statements, and last 2 years of tax returns is called the income certification process. You'll have about a week from the time of the lottery, June 23rd, to submit these documents. So please, just in case you do win, start looking at your documents and compiling them. Sometimes it's difficult for people to find their federal tax returns, so you might want to start thinking about that now. So once we move from the income certification process for those 4 households, we will be, if we find the households eligible, we will be providing a proceed letter, which details the next steps in the purchase, but are normally with the proceed letter, we would be giving the buyer 15 days to sign a purchase and sell agreement and schedule a home inspection. Closings normally take about 45 days after the purchase and sell has been executed by both the buyer and the seller. To give you an idea of when the closing might take place, of course, the income certification will most likely take more than 1 week, depending on how organized we all are and how much time we have to review the documents and how straightforward this household situation is. And also, who knows what might happen with COVID-19 pandemic and the difficulties it may or may not bring. But the units are, 3 of them are complete, and 1 of them is really close to completion. And so we anticipate that as we move through this process, that last 4th unit will be completed, and when you're scheduled to close, you will be able to close and look at the unit before you close. Again, the lottery date has changed to Tuesday, June 23rd at 11 a.m. We normally hold the lottery in the council chambers on the 2nd floor of City Hall. You do not have to be present in order to win. You can always attend. I'm not sure what the COVID-19 situation might be by then, but it may be best to stay home and watch it from YouTube if you'd like. We normally have the video up within 24 hours, and we will be notifying the winning households, household number 1 for 227-seater and number 1 for the 2-bedroom at 80, and then number 1 and number 2 for the two bedrooms at 110. We'll normally notify you immediately. We'll give you a call and send you an email with the list of documents that we'll need. If you do not hear from us within 24 hours, likely you did not place high enough to be called. And please wait about 2 weeks for us to publish the lottery list so that you can see your ranking. If your household number 2, for example, for the 3-bedroom, it might be worth preparing your documents anyway, just in case. The income certification process may take at least a few weeks, and so it might be worth preparing documents just in case household number 1 ends up not moving forward with the unit, maybe because after looking at it they're like, we are not interested, or perhaps they're unable to acquire a mortgage, or perhaps we find that they're not income eligible. However, if you're household number 30 on the list, chances are we're not going to get to you, and you may not have the chance to purchase this brand new unit. If 10 years down the road, the household who buys this unit initially decides to sell, we will not be going back to this lottery list. So once the units are purchased, then really there is no use for this lottery list. 10 years down the road, if the initial buyer decides to sell, we would be doing a new lottery and going about a new process. If you have any questions regarding the lottery list or you're standing on it, feel free to reach out to us. And the City of Somerville's website under Inclusionary Housing Programs, that's the location of our information packets, applications, and lottery list, in case you're wondering and would like to check. Here lists a list of documents that we'll be requiring for initial review from every winning household. So household number 1 for the 3-bedroom and 2-bedroom at 80%, and households number 1 and 2 for the 110% units. We'll require the last 3 years of federal tax returns for all household members, including all schedules and pages and W-2s. The most recent 3 months of asset statements for all assets for all household members, including all pages, including any blank pages as well. If you've closed any accounts within the last 12 months, we'll be needing verification of that. We'll also need verification of any assets, even if there are any assets in the open account, for example. We will also be needing Venmo, PayPal statements for anyone that has an open account with them. We will also need the last 3 months of income statements for all household members. If someone is self-employed, we'll need a year-to-date profit and loss statement and a projected profit and loss statement for the next 12 months moving forward. If there's a household member who hasn't received any income or doesn't expect to receive any income for the next 12 months, we will be needing documentation of that, and we can provide a document for the head of household and the person not receiving any income to notarize. If a household member is a full-time student, we will need verification of that from the registrar office or the office at the higher institution that would be providing verification of this. And we do not take schedules. We need an actual letter just stating whether the person is a full-time student or not. And if you have any questions, please reach out to us and we'll be working with you. And this is just an initial list. We probably will be asking for more documentation depending on what your situation is. And this is only relevant to anyone who is moving forward after the lottery.